Yusuf John Imam. You're welcome. So very quickly, we have with us none other but Dr. Babatunde Ajibade, SAN. We are so delighted to have you here. Very, very quickly, Dr. Ajibade is the managing partner of SP Ajibade & Co., and he has been engaged even since his admission to the Nigerian bar in 1989 in active and full-time corporate and commercial practice. His area of academic specialization is in the field of private international law, with particular interest in law relating to the recognition and enforcement of foreign judgment. There's so much to say about him, but we know that he has been elevated to the rank of Senior Advocate of Nigeria in the year 2007. In December, he's a Fellow of the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies in London, an International Practice Fellow of the International Bar Association, and Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, United Kingdom. I'm so grateful to have you here, sir. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Rosemond. I'm good. I'm good. Very busy, but still alive.
Of course. Thank you very much. Like I said, on behalf of the young lawyers, we are saying thank you for granting us your audience, and I'm sure it's going to be an engaging session. We're going to make this as quick, short, and straight to the point as possible, so that we can allow you, do other things that you really, really have to do. There's a lot of things going on right now, but we're just so grateful for this opportunity. You have such an amazing profile, sir, and I must say it is indeed an honor to share the same platform with you. But before we do a deep dive into the questions surrounding the subject matter of our discourse, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into the legal profession, highlighting aspects of that journey that we may not be privy to as young lawyers?
Okay, thanks, Rosemond. First, I'd like to correct two things you said in your intro.
Okay.
You said I'm a council member of the SBL, and that I'm chairman of the Banking, Finance, and Insolvency Committee. Those are past. So I was a council member up until 2018, and I was chairman of the Banking, Finance, and Insolvency Committee for. Yeah, those are past offices. I don't hold those offices anymore.
Awesome. Okay.
So tell you something about myself that is not on my CV. Yeah.
Of course. Oh wow, we lost him there, but I'm pretty sure he's going to get back. I'm pretty sure that we've been having a lot of network issues, but don't worry, not to worry. Please stay on. And yes, that's true. Dr. Ajibade actually served as a council member, and that was as far back as 2008, and then of course back then. So thank you so much for that correction. I think he's back now, and I believe you will be ready to answer the question. So we want to actually know some of the things or the journey that he has gone through, even while maybe we're not privy to some of the journeys or some of the things that he may have gone through, even as he was growing within the profession. So I believe that he's back. So we will just be waiting for him if he can join us too. I believe you is about answering that question now. Hello, sir. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm sure it's a network issue. All right. So first of all, while he's trying to get that fixed, now I needed to just. Okay, you can hear me. All right, great.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Can hear you. Yeah, it's just very frustrating.
So sorry about that. Okay, I know it can be a little bit challenging, but please hold on with us, guys. Hold on with us. Okay, I'm seeing some hands raised. Yes, okay, of course, there's going to be an opportunity for everyone to actually ask questions. So let's still hold on a bit. I believe that Dr. will soon be back with us. All right, he's back. All right. So sorry about the network challenges.
It's not you, it's me. I'm the one that should be apologizing. I think the challenge is at my end.
Oh, sorry about that. It's fine. We have so many hands raised, but okay. So if you could just help us with the question, So, like a little journey about your growth and the parts that are not on your CV that we will not be private to book can be helpful for us.
Okay. So I think the most important thing about my journey and that I think is significant is the fact that I've never been satisfied with the status quo. I've always had an eye on a bigger picture. So I'm a second generation lawyer. I was born into well, my father is a lawyer and a reasonably successful one. But when I decided to study law and I looked at the legal landscape, I realized that in order to differentiate myself from those around me, and in order to meet the expectations that I had for myself, that I needed to do a little bit extra. Hence my pursuing postgraduate degrees, academic degrees, even though I didn't intend to lecture. People have asked me often that why did you bother doing a PhD when you were always planning? Yeah, when I was always planning to practice. But for me, it was really just out of a desire to have something a bit extra that would differentiate me in practice. And also, I joined a firm that was, we had, I think, 3 lawyers when I joined. My father had two other lawyers. And that my vision for legal practice wasn't for a small daddy and son.
Boutique
I wanted to do something a bit more elaborate. And I also always had a vision for bringing other people into the business, because as far as I'm concerned, it's a great disaster when lawyers invest a lot of their energy, a lot of their resources in building a practice, and then everybody's going to move on at some point, and then they pass on, and that's the end of it. All that work just goes to waste. I've seen it happen too many times. Yeah, I've seen it happen too many times. So again, that for me was a vision. The vision was to try and grow the firm that I had the privilege of joining, which I now manage, into an institution that would outlast its proprietors at the time. And to God be the glory, we now have 5 partners. We now have offices in Ibadan, Lagos, and Abuja. And hopefully at some point we'll open an office in Port Harcourt. And hopefully at some point, maybe my partners, when I've left, will open offices in Ghana and Liberia and Sierra Leone and other parts of the world. Because really, there's no reason why, we express concern about international law firms coming into Nigeria to come and eat our lunch. I mean, yes, that is a threat, but I think we should also start thinking about going into other places to eat their lunch. They say attack is sometimes the best form of defense. And you limit yourself only by not being clear as to what you think you can achieve. So I think the sky is the limit, really. And when I've traveled around Africa, I've realized that actually the Nigerian legal profession, even though it's not where we would like it to be yet, relative to some of our colleagues in some other African countries, we're actually light years ahead. Yes, and I think we need to take full advantage of what we've been able to achieve. There's a lot more that needs to be done, but I think we've done reasonably well so far. We need to just build on it.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. One of the things that you've said that I can actually garner is the fact that when you were in a system, you didn't allow the system to define you. Yes, you could work according to the dictates of the system, but you had to create your own. Look for something that stands you out in that system and carve a niche in that system for yourself that you can use to leverage for enhanced productivity. So that's really amazing. Thank you very much for that. However, that leads to my second question. Now, you must, at a point in your growth as a lawyer, you were a young lawyer, right? And I wouldn't say things are the way now, the way they were then. So what were some of the things that happened to you then in terms of your growth? What made it easy? What made it difficult? And is it radically different from what you can actually see being obtainable now? Because I can assure you that, like, you already know, the practice has changed. You know, when you hear your parents say, remember when we were in the university, this was what happened, and they glorified it that it was better. So would you say that the opportunities available for young lawyers are that when you were one, you know, those same opportunities exist now? And if they don't, how can young lawyers cope with that reality?
Well, that is a major challenge at the moment. Definitely, things are a lot tougher for young lawyers. If you ask me, I'd say things are a lot tougher for all lawyers. It's not just young lawyers, because the truth is, when the environment is a lot more competitive now than it used to be. You know, I tell you, I'm a second-generation lawyer. I've heard stories. I've heard stories like, you know, when people in my parents' generation, when they studied law, they were being, you know, they were spoiled for choice as to what work to do, because there weren't enough lawyers. So there was a competition for the few lawyers that were available. So you had a choice. Oh, do you want to go to the ministry? Do you want to go into private practice? Do you want to go into politics? You know, they were like hotcakes. They were in high demand. But the truth is that has changed. And, you know, there's nothing we can do about that. We have to recognize the fact that that has changed from being a commodity in high demand. All of a sudden, we're now in a situation where there are actually more lawyers than there are opportunities, which of course makes life a lot tougher for those who are coming into the profession now. And it just means that, you know, lawyers need to do a bit more. You know, the challenges are more. So in order to stand out, in order to make yourself stand out, you have to do a bit more than perhaps a lawyer would have had to do 20, 25, 30 years ago when I joined the profession. But I think the profession also has a responsibility to recognize the fact that things have changed and to make a conscious effort to address the situation in which those who join the profession now find themselves. And I don't think that enough is being done in that regard. It's one of my pet concerns that the Nigerian Bar Association really should not be doing what it's doing now, which is lawyers are coming into the profession and they're not being provided with any support or guidance as to this is what the profession is like. You know, aside from what they've been taught in university and law school, which I don't think is sufficient. I think that the MBA has a duty to assist. I mean, obviously, some lawyers might not need it. Some young lawyers who come out of law school might already have family connections, or they may have, you know, people who are going to arrange jobs for them. But that is not this. I don't believe that is the situation for the majority. And this is where I think that the MBA needs to be playing a much more significant role. I mean, for example, in our firm, some of the applications that I see from young lawyers applying for work, you know, it's obvious to me that they haven't, it doesn't look to me, let me not say it's obvious, but it doesn't look to me that they have actually been given any guidance as to, you know, what's the best way to put a CV together? What firms should you be targeting? You know, what are your strengths? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You know, if you are interested in a particular type of practice, you know, maybe this is the place you should be applying to. And also, I think the MBA should also be engaging with the employers, you know, with the existing law firms, so that you can have like law fairs, you can have like job fairs, you have careers guidance of a sort, because it's not the case that every lawyer has to work in a law firm. You know, there's so many things that a lawyer can do, and there should be some support to assist. I think that would help take some of the pressure off those who are coming into the profession afresh.
Thank you very much. I couldn't help but agree with you, because not everyone has the privilege to be properly guided at an infant stage of practice. Because we all know, as young lawyers, we all know that what we are taught in law school, what we are taught in university is radically different from some of the things that we observe and we see in practice. So sometimes, even in fact, the system in itself is not even placed in such a way that actually prepares you for the life outside the four walls of any institution. And just as you've said, the MBA basically has a role to play. And of course, like you said, it's not the same. And that actually now leads me to my third question. And I'm so grateful for the way you've actually channeled this out, because people say different strokes for different folks. You know, there are dissenting opinions on how, you know, how young lawyers should commence their law practice. For myself, I can speak boldly and say that I was privileged to come under proper guidance and mentorship. I currently serve under one of the best, and I can say that I have been exposed, because that is that. I realize that a lot of people on the same category may not have that experience and may not be able to have that same exposure that they need, you know, because there is no mentorship structure in itself that basically says that, okay, we understand that you are coming in, how can we guide you to find satisfaction, personal fulfillment, career fulfillment as well? Because sometimes it's not just all about the money. Like I've actually, you know, I have that opinion. So in your opinion, how should young lawyers commence their practice immediately after law school? So you have the school of thought that says, you know what, I can't serve under anybody. I don't think I have the leverage, or I don't think it's important for me to be guided by anybody. Let's just go out into the field and see what we can do. Some of them make that decision intentionally, while some of them, circumstance actually brings those decisions, because there's no job out there. There's nobody saying you can come. Most of the time, most jobs are gotten on recommendations from third parties. So for young lawyers who, to a certain extent, may not be so privileged, I would say, like myself, to be under proper guidance, how then should they commence their practice? Should they, you know, say they want to set out to do their own thing, or they should insist on actually seeking for direct mentorship, whether in a law firm or through a mentorship scheme or faculty or whatever the case may be? So what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think you've asked the question and you've provided some of the answers. You know, the truth
Wow,
is,
okay.
yeah, because I don't think that there's a one size fits all. If we had the capacity, to absorb the number of lawyers that we are producing today, I mean, my default would be that, you know, there is a lot of sense in pupillage, in compulsory pupillage, where every lawyer would have to do a minimum period of hands-on training with an experienced senior. But I don't think that there are enough suitable, maybe that's not the right choice of word. I don't think there are enough seniors out there who have the capacity to absorb the number of lawyers we're preparing. So just like you said, which is why I said you've asked the question and you've answered it. Just like you said, some young lawyers, some out of choice, some out of necessity, will have to strike out on their own. But this is what I say about the MBA's role. Irrespective of which position you're going to be in, I think that there's still a role for the MBA to play. Be it if you want to go out, if you want to strike out on your own, I think the MBA can provide guidance, you know, as to these are the minimum standards that are required for you to set up a law office. This is the kind of funding you would need. You know, this is the minimum levels of, you know, equipment and infrastructure that's required. These are areas where you can raise finance. These are structures that you can put together. If you want to form a partnership with your colleagues, you know, this is the best way to structure a partnership. I mean, I'll give you one example. If there are 4 young lawyers who want to get together, I mean, I always think that there's, you know, you have to complement each other. It doesn't make any sense for 4 of you who are doing the same thing and will be competing for exactly the same work to decide to join together in partnership, because then there's no diversity. But if one person is interested in criminal law, the other is interested in commercial litigation, the other is interested in land law, then you complement each other, because that way you increase the chances that if a client walks in through the door, there'll be somebody there who has the interest, even if not at that stage necessarily the full set of skills, but the interest in the area of law that will enable him or her serve the client. Yeah. All that type of guidance, I think, is important. Then, of course, you know, we know that some firms, even today, will only employ young lawyers of a particular level of either academic achievement, typically academic achievement. Yeah, qualification. So, I mean, why allow, if we know that, why don't we segment the market? Why don't we segment the market and stop wasting, because I think it's frustrating for young lawyers to send CVs to a place where the CVs are just going to be put in a dustbin. I mean, it's frustrating. So why don't we segment the market and say that, look, let the NBA engage with the employers. So you can also guide the young lawyers as they're coming out to say that, well, look, I've looked at your qualifications. Now, of course, if you know somebody in the law firm, maybe there's another route to get in. You know about the recruitment policies of these firms. This is a list of the firms that you should apply to, you know, based on what your qualifications are, so that you don't waste your time. And then, like I said, it doesn't have to be law firm. I mean, there's work to be done in the National Assembly. They need lawyers there. There's work to be done in government parastatals. They need lawyers there. There's work to be done in our ministries of justice. If you ask me, there's significant work to be done in our police stations, because if we had lawyers in every police station in this country, the levels of human rights abuses would be reduced. And the truth is, when you talk to young lawyers, it is clear to me that they don't all have the same interest or the same aspirations. So somebody needs to be assessing that. I mean, I ran a competition. It's still ongoing for my alma mater, for the law faculty at the University of Ife. And they were supposed to, you know, lawyers were supposed to do like an elevator pitch of the law profession, their ideal, the law profession of their dreams. And just listening to what some of these young lawyers to be was saying, even just listening to them, I could see that, you know, some of these guys are going to, or their interest is more in the human rights aspect of law, whereas some is more in the tech aspect of law, whereas some is more in the commercial aspect of law. Somebody needs to be identifying those streams and guiding those lawyers so that they're going to the area where their interest lies. Because it is when you're doing what you're interested in that you're likely to excel.
Exactly. That's just it. I could have said drop mic, but you actually made a point, because it's actually the area that you're actually passionate about that you would excel. It would take an extra effort, you know, just because, okay, now you are wearing a wig and gown, and so you have to go to court, and then you're not really interested in it. But you know, there is something that you can do that it wouldn't feel like work. It wouldn't feel like work. You would be working for hours, you'd be staying up late. You won't feel like you're doing anything. Why? Because it's natural. So one of the challenges I have
absolutely spot on.
Yes. One of the challenges I've also seen is that a lot of people are just stuck because you feel like there are no options. If you were given a blank ticket or a blank check to say what exactly is it that you would want to do if you were a young lawyer, a lot of people would not say they want to be in litigation or would want to do maybe corporate practice. They would have decisions that they would want to make. So if you were going to spearhead such transformational change, what are some of the key things that should actually be in place? And what are some of the things that young lawyers should begin to look out for if they are going to actually seek guidance? So you hear a lot of things about mentorship. You may just see somebody who displays braggadociously in court and you feel like they are very competent. What is the judge of competence, and who should young lawyers assess to be able to choose their mentors properly? What are the parameters that young lawyers should look at in order to say, you know what, I think I want this person to actually be my mentor? And what are some of the roles that young lawyers should play if they seek such guidance?
Now, you know, again, you ask a very interesting question. I always say that the best judge of a lawyer is that lawyer's colleagues. So I've heard talk about mentorship. One needs to be careful that you don't get mentored by. If you learn bad habits at an early stage, it's very difficult to get rid of them. So again, if I had my way in an ideal world, the NBA ought to, because what you are trying to do is to replicate the best standards in the profession. So I'll give you an example, you know, and it might be an extreme example, but, you know, it's an example. If I know if I'm NBA, if I'm in the NBA, and I know that a lawyer who is a litigation lawyer has a reputation. I mean, it's always difficult to prove, but that has a reputation for bribing judges. I'm not going to send young lawyers to that type of person to be mentored, to see in the profession. You know, so I think in terms of mentoring, we also need to be careful because, I mean, we need to be realistic that it's not everything that is out there that is good. So in identifying mentors, in identifying people that young lawyers should look up to, it is important that the NBA plays a role because, like I said, we're the ones that know each other best. And it's just like what we say even about our judiciary. One of the problems we have in the profession today, at least in the justice sector, is that in my view, the NBA is not playing a sufficiently proactive role in ensuring that it is the right people that go to the bench. Because, you know, lawyers are not angels. We have good ones, we have bad ones. But if you have a lawyer who is corrupt, who is lazy, and, you know, not a particularly nice person, he or she is not going to become a judge and suddenly turn into a paragon of virtue and hardworking and intelligent.
Definitely.
You know,
Definitely.
so we should be playing a much stronger gateman role to ensure that it is only those who fit the bill that go to the bench, because it is only by so doing that we can get our justice sector working properly. So same way, I think that it is only those that have, you know, that we can identify as being good examples that we should allow to mentor the younger ones, because they're the ones that are guaranteed to pass the right values to them.
Okay. My next question is very short because I think we have barely 20 minutes more. We're actually going to reduce that for the sake of your time. How do young lawyers gain exposure? So you can never know something is better than where you are until you've tasted it. You don't know that another area of law calls better to you until you have actually had an encounter with it. You know, you don't know how good you can be at something else until you have tried it. So exposure doesn't just come. You have to actually seek for it. But how should young lawyers gain, like you say you want exposure in a particular area, what are the steps that young lawyers should take in order to get that exposure and benefit from it?
You know, my view is that you have to keep an open mind and you have to seize every opportunity that you have to interact with people in the profession. So attendance at seminars, attendance at conferences. I mean, obviously, you know, these things come in all shapes and sizes and at various levels. So at whatever level that you can engage in it, right from, you know, attendance in your local branch knowledge sharing sessions to attendance at NBA section conferences, to attendance at the annual conference, you know, to volunteering. You know, sometimes you learn a lot. You know, you said something earlier, and you know, and I say this without, it might not be popular, but the truth is, one of the challenges with lack of exposure and with us opening ourselves, making ourselves available to learn a lot more, is the excessive focus on material reward. And don't get me wrong, money is important, but if you will not ever do anything except there is a immediate financial benefit, then you will not gain exposure. You know, I'll give you an example. I started attending the IBA annual conferences in 2002, and I've attended, you know, at least maybe 3/4 of the conferences between then and now. I haven't been every year. But I remember that when I first started attending the IBA conferences, there were even senior lawyers, you know, lawyers senior to me, who said to me that, look, this thing is a waste of time. I mean, the amount of money you're spending on going for IBA. I mean, that after I'd gone once or twice, that what did you get out of it? How many briefs have you received out of it? But you don't things don't necessarily deliver immediately. If we keep looking for instant gratification, then we will not persevere in something that could be of great benefit down the line. Today now, I'm a vice chair of the Africa Regional Forum of the IBA. If I had taken the advice of those seniors who told me after my first one or two attendances that, look, this thing is a waste of money.
Yes.
You've gone there twice. You didn't bring anything back. I would not have achieved anything. Yes. So sometimes you have to invest a bit more time and a bit more effort before you get the reward. But if you're looking for instant gratification, then you probably you stop making the effort just before it was about to start yielding
results.
Fruit. So for me, in terms of exposure, is that before it starts yielding results. So we need to be prepared to persevere. We need to be patient, and we need to put in the time required for the results to start coming through. I think one of the greatest challenges, and I think it has a lot to do with technology as well. You know, everything these days is instant on your instant messaging, instant, everything is instant. Yeah, so it makes it a lot more difficult.
Generation.
Yeah, I think it makes it a lot more difficult for your generation to see things through. But you must try, because really, 9 times out of 10, there are no shortcuts. You will always find the lucky ones. I mean, there'll be the lucky ones who would hit it big, right from the get-go. But that is always the exception to the rule. So if you're a gambling man, it's better to go with what is more likely, what is more probable to give you a successful result than to take a gamble. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really, and I completely agree. So everyone watching this, please feel free to write and send in your questions. I can see some questions dropping because we're about to round up. I believe in the next 10 to 15 minutes will be done. And so I completely agree with what you said, sir. Not everything is financial. Sometimes your time is an asset. Your time is an asset. Your skill is an asset. If you are good at what you do, of course, the Holy Book says that you are going to stand before kings and not men. So it's a matter of, first of all, finding that thing that makes you different. And of course, the financial benefits will always come. Like, of course, it may not be easy for everyone. And like you said, there are some persons who had it exceptionally easy. A lot of people have to actually grow. And that's why exposure and growth go together. You can't say that you want exposure and you don't want to grow, because growth is not comfortable. Growth, sometimes you would deny yourself. Growth, sometimes you would actually have to pay some sacrifices. But when you are paying the sacrifices, people don't really see. But it's when you go out there and your people see you that you are competent at this thing, and they are like, wow, but they don't know the sacrifice you paid. So I've learned so much from that. Thank you very much. And of course, we are not undermining the place of financial reward, but I see it more as something that flows to you, because finance will only flow to value. That's what money is an exchange of value. If you have the value, the money will come. So thank you very much for that. And I really, really appreciate that answer. So in your opinion, what role should young lawyers really play? What roles do you think they have to play within the legal community? And what would be your advice? So there are 2 questions. What would be your advice for young lawyers who are literally struggling to find their place, whether because they lack fulfillment or they are struggling to attain certain levels of fulfillment within the profession? So the first question is, what role should young lawyers play within the legal community, and what is your advice to young lawyers who are struggling to find their place even within that legal community?
So, the first one, what role should young lawyers play? I mean, I was writing something up recently, and I made the point that in today's world, young lawyers actually have a significant advantage that they must maximize. Where the world is becoming more and more technologically advanced. Of necessity and naturally, young lawyers are more tech savvy than senior lawyers. Young lawyers need to make that count. And generally, I mean, that is just one aspect of areas in which young lawyers have comparative advantage. But generally, I think one of the challenges, and you made the point when you spoke about values, is that young lawyers have not realized sufficiently, I would say, not that they haven't realized it at all, and some do, but some don't, realize that, at least for those who work in law firms, and whatever situation in which you find yourself, that if you add value, you will be recognized. It's just a matter of time. So a young lawyer who, for example, I'll give the example of a law firm A young lawyer who works in a law firm and has absolutely no interest or shows absolutely no interest in how the firm survives, in how the firm makes money, and operates on the basis of, well, look, I'm just an employee. Come the end of the month, you better pay me my salary, and doesn't show any interest in the well-being of the organization, is doing himself or herself a disservice. Because at the end of the day, if you show commitment to the place where you're working, whether it's government service, whether it's a private law firm, whether it's the National Assembly, wherever, it will be recognized. So I think young lawyers tend to, young lawyers tend to look at this thing as though it's a zero-sum game. It's just one-way traffic. What am I getting? What am I getting? Give me, give me, give me, give me. But I think that if they also think about what they are able to give and the value they are able to add, the value they're able to offer, it will result in them getting a lot more than what they're getting at present. I would like to see a situation in which a young lawyer says he's leaving because he's found a better offer, and the employer is saying no, just name your price. I can't let you go because you're so valuable to me. Because even when we did work and we didn't bill for it, you're the one that ensured that we got paid. They're the one that reminded me that that work that we did last year, the client never paid. But then there are not enough young lawyers who are actually adding value. So if you look at it as one-way traffic, it just becomes a recurring decimal. And the real tragedy there is that even if you leave and set up your own business, just like I said, it's about mentoring. You're going to go with that same attitude. It's going to be replicated. Because what you do for others, I can assure you, is what you will also do, is what you will do for yourself. If you show commitment, and you add value to somebody else, you will always show commitment and add value because that is you. It will become a part of you. So that would be my advice to young lawyers, really, that, add value, and you will see that value will come back to you. I forget now the second part of the question. I think that was just the first part. What was the second part?
Okay, so what would be your advice to young lawyers who are basically struggling to find their place? So they don't know whether they should work in-house or be in the firm. They have not even gotten to the point where there's clarity. There is a lot of haziness as to where they stand and where they fit in and what their place actually is within the legal profession.
The only solution to that is that you must sample sample a variety of alternatives. I mean, the truth is, lucky is the person who finds his or her groove at a very early stage. So some people are lucky. Right from university, they were involved in moot and mock. They like to argue. So they knew right from the get-go that they wanted to be litigators. Now, it could be that they would still have to work out what type of litigation, whether it's commercial, whether it's criminal, but they knew that this was what they had a passion for. But you're right, quite a lot of young lawyers would not know. And the only way to know, the only way to find out is to try, the variety of options out there. If you're not lucky enough to find your groove immediately. I mean, what we do in our firm, for example, we've got 5 departments. And when we take young lawyers in, especially new wigs, youth coppers, they actually do a rotation. So you do maybe 2 months in one department, and we move them around so that they can try all the departments. And in that process, hopefully, they will be able to find, wow, this is what I really enjoy doing.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's what most young lawyers should do. I mean, obviously, it's not every firm that has multiple departments. So if you go to a firm that is purely litigation and they don't have a corporate side to their practice.
I was about to say that.
Yeah, then obviously if you do that for 6 months, 1 year, and you can feel that, what, I'm not really feeling this. I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. Then you have to go and try something else. Try something else until you find what makes you happy. Because the truth is, I tell you, and that's why I say it's not all about money. You made the point to yourself, Rosemond. It's like a child, and this applies more to boys than anything else. It's like a child who loves playing soccer. And, you know, every opportunity he or she got, or he was out on the streets playing soccer. He now gets a job with, he's now hired by Manchester United or Arsenal to play football. And then he's being paid something that he was prepared to do for free anyway.
Exactly.
Because he enjoys it. I mean, what better can you have? So if you're doing something you enjoy and then you're getting paid for it, I mean, that is an ideal situation. So the important thing is to keep looking for what you enjoy until you find it. Because when you're doing what you enjoy, you know, you're already halfway to happiness.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. And if I'm to summarize everything you said in one sentence, it's that clarity is a journey. Okay, so you don't get to a point where, you know, you are very sure, you know, of what exactly it is that you actually want to achieve. Clarity is actually a journey. Sorry for that. Of course, we know we are in Nigeria, so we just had a little power issue, but it'll be back in no time. Okay, so we have some questions here, which I will be reading out. So it says, good afternoon, Dr. Ajibade. The reality of the legal profession of today is that a lot of young lawyers are being groomed in toxic workplaces. What would you advise such young lawyers who are grappling with the need to attain fulfillment but have found themselves in toxic environments? So that's the first question. I don't know if you could hear me.
Shogo. I could hear you, dear. I could hear you. I think it's a very, very good question. And the truth is, my advice to young lawyers who find themselves in toxic environments is run. You know, my advice is run as quick as you can, because toxicity is also contagious. It goes back to what I said earlier when I was talking about mentorship and saying that, you know, I think the NBA also has a duty in trying to put a mentorship, if you want to put a mentorship program in place, that you screen the potential mentors, because you don't want to send young lawyers to be mentored in a toxic environment or in a place where they're going to pick up all the worst habits that the profession has. So my recommendation to young lawyers who find themselves in toxic environments is to run and get out of there as quickly as possible. I know it's easier said than done, especially in a profession now where unemployment is a major challenge. So I know for a lot of young lawyers, it's a case of, you know what, this environment is toxic, but at least I have a job, and let me, you know, I'll stay here because I don't have many options. But then there's no harm. So yeah, but I can understand that a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. So when I say run, I'm not saying, you know, leave your current job because it's toxic when you haven't found another one. But then I just think that you should be on the lookout constantly for a better place, because staying in a toxic environment is not good for your soul. It's not good for your psyche. It's not good for your professional advancement. So, you know, my advice to young lawyers who find themselves in those kind of environments is keep looking and move on as quickly as you can.
Thank you very much for that answer. We hope that answers your question. And there's nothing like being in a place that's toxic. You can't grow. And, you know, thank you so much for that answer. We have another question. I think we're almost done. It says, good evening, Leonard SAN. Is there any hope for a lawyer who wants to start practicing again after 12 years? I want you to answer that question.
Yes, I think, you know, this is again, it's one of the fact that it's never too late to start. But I think that anybody who wants to start practicing after 12 years has to be realistic in what their expectations are. So say, for example, if you want to go into litigation after 12 years, obviously you're 12 years post-call, but you haven't practiced as a litigator.
At all.
Yes. So if you're a litigator, a lot of what we do in litigation is hands-on. You learn it on the job. So you're going to come in, you're 12 years post-call, but really, in terms of your experience, you're 1 year. You're a rookie. So it takes a particular mindset to be able to adjust to that. And if you have that mindset, if you have that maturity, because basically, even though you're 12 years post-call, you're going to be a junior in terms of experience and capability to somebody who is 6-7 years post-call, who has been going to court every day from the day he qualified, he or she qualified. So once you are prepared to take that position, then there's no challenge. As a matter of fact, this raises a very, very interesting point for me. And this is perhaps something that addresses the question you asked me right at the beginning of this, that I should say something that might not be obvious on my CV. So I qualified in 1989. Immediately after law school, I didn't practice at all. I went overseas to do a master's. So it was only after I finished my LLM that I came back to do my youth corps. I did my youth corps for 1 year, from 1990 to 91, and worked for about 6 months, and then went back to the UK to do a PhD. So by the time I came back to Nigeria in 1996, I was, 89 to 96? So I was 7 years post-call. But then in terms of actual practical experience, I was way behind. I was way behind my colleagues. I mean, my colleagues who we were all together in law school. I mean, a lot of them had 6-7 years of practice experience under their belt, and I was coming back in 1996. Albeit I had a PhD, but in terms of practical experience, they had a lot more experience than I did. And I had to adjust. I had to adjust in my mind that, look, you know what? You're going to have to work twice as hard to catch up with these guys. Because no matter how much theoretical knowledge you have, no matter how much PhD you have, the fact is these guys have a lot more practical experience than you. And that is exactly what I did. I just knuckled down, and I was working twice as hard as they were because I wanted to catch up, with them in terms of practical experience. And to God be the glory, as it turns out, I was the first of our set to take silk. Awesome. But that is because I worked twice extra hard. Yeah, twice as hard to catch up with my colleagues. So somebody who's 12 years post-call and who wants to come into practice, there's no reason why you can't do it. But you need to have that mindset that you're going to have to play catch up, and that you're going to have to work twice as hard to catch up as quickly.
Exactly. 2 things: have the right mindset. Don't be too big to learn from somebody who seems to be on the same level, or even below you, because at the end of the day, it's the knowledge you want to get. So that's amazing. Thank you very much. And that's such an amazing and incredible example. So I'll go to one question. Okay, the questions are coming in. Thank you so much, guys. But we're not able to take everything. But please put it out there. We hope that we'll be able to wrap up. I want this to end before 6, hopefully. All right. So we have a question from Yusuf Nuruddin. But before that, I would ask the question. So someone asks, what will be the role of the MBA in providing mentorship to young lawyers? I'm very excited about this question. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. I said that already. I think the role of the MBA would be first in identifying the mentors, because I think it is important that the MBA must ensure that the quality of mentorship is right. Mentorship is not an end in itself. Mentorship, in my view, is to assist the young lawyers to be the best they can be. I don't think under the guise of mentorship, we should put young lawyers in a situation where they're learning the wrong things. So for me, the role of the MBA would be first in identifying the role models that we want for young lawyers, to engage with them and convince them, because your typical mentor, your typical person that would be a role model is likely to be somebody who is very busy. So we need to work on them to make them to create the time to dedicate to mentoring, and then to set the scheme in place. It's already been done. I know the SBL already has a mentorship scheme. I was a mentor to somebody in the SBL. So it's something that we would replicate on the national level.
Okay, thank you very much for that. That question in itself has already been answered, but for sake of emphasis, thank you. So we have a question. It says, away from MBA responsibilities to young lawyers, what is your plan for young lawyers regarding the responsibility of the MBA to the society, particularly on issues of police harassment? Thank you for that question. Okay. I'm sure he will get that. I'm sure it's just a little network glitch. So we're almost rounding up people, hoping that he comes back very soon. So guys, thank you so much for staying till now. While we wait for the level 6 network to be back, that's all the challenges that we face. Of course, you could see like a minute ago, there was some power outage here. But so far, so good. I can say that a lot of us have really learned a lot, and I can most assuredly say that I've actually learned so much from the words of wisdom from the learned Silk. So we'll just wait a little bit to see if it was going to be coming back. I believe that we're already past, I think we're even past our time for 6. But so far so good. I am very sure that a lot of us have comments. So there are a lot of comments that I'm seeing here. So I will just go through them while we wait. Okay. Someone says power outage and Nigeria situation. That's where we find ourselves. And someone says, thank you very much, Dr.Ajibade, Ma'am Rosemond, very grateful. Thank you very much. It's not really easy, trying to do events like this. Ordinarily, I should be worried and scared that, oh my God, network is gone, but no, I can't be. These are the things that we have to deal with, and we're hoping that it gets better from now and so on. But so far, so good. So far, so good. I don't know if we have any more comments. I know that there are some questions that were left unattended to. So this is what will happen, right? If for any reason at all, the Netflix network doesn't get back, or there's still a little network challenge, what will happen is that we would actually answer these questions. We would actually take notice of them. I can see that there are about 2 more questions here. I was hoping that after these 2 questions we would round up, but so far so good. I'm very sure that you'll be able to get at least something from this. I would have really loved Leonard to actually answer these questions. Okay, so I'll just read the next 2 questions so that you would know that he's going to answer them in due course. And like I said, this session is being recorded. So for those persons who are unable to register or gain access at this time, you'll be able to actually get the full recordings of this session, and I'm sure you will be able to share them and of course get them answered. So very quickly, I will be reading the second and third questions, and it's so that our viewers can see them. Emmanuel Ibironke asks, do you have the plan to employ young lawyers who are skillful in some areas as staff in NBA National Secretariat in order to reduce the unemployment of young lawyers? I believe you will be able to answer that. I could have answered it, but hey, I'm not the doctor anyway. Second question. What is your perspective?
I'm back, so I can answer it myself.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I don't know if you got the first question.
Yes, I did. I'm actually awesome. Reading. I can read the question on the chat.
Okay, yes.
So in terms of NBA responsibilities to young lawyers, particularly on issues of police harassment. Again, anyway, so NBA responsibilities to lawyers. I think it's a responsibility to lawyers because even old lawyers are getting harassed these days. I think the police are on they have a new mission. There must have been a signal from Abuja that lawyers are the new targets, because the regularity with which lawyers are being harassed by law enforcement agencies these days is really off the hook. But so my solution or my view on this is that first, the NBA must engage with the law enforcement agencies directly. I think we must go beyond just writing statements, making public statements. Yeah, direct engagement. We need to hold a meeting with the IG. We need to hold a meeting with the DSS at the highest level and let them know that this is unacceptable, that lawyers cannot and should not be harassed, especially when they're in the course of performing their official duties. I mean, I'm of the school of thought that lawyers are just members of society as well. So if the police harass you, at a checkpoint, well, they harass everybody anyway. So I think that is a problem that we need to take up, but I don't think that is a lawyer problem. I think that's a society problem. But then when it's a lawyer is being harassed whilst performing his official duty, so for example, you go to the police station to try and effect the bail of your client or to represent your client, and you're being harassed and pushed around and slapped around, that is totally unacceptable. And I think we must take it up with the authorities. Then I think that we must also take it up with our own constituency, and that constituency is the judiciary. Because as far as I'm concerned, lawyers carrying placards and doing a luta doesn't necessarily solve anything. We should use the tools we have. Tools we have, the only area where nobody can compete with us is in the courts. Now, if we have those tools and we're not using them effectively, I think that there's a problem. So when I spoke recently at the NBA Calabar Branch Law Week during the Bar Bench Forum. And I said to the judges that if I were a judge, every time a case comes before me, which is a fundamental rights case or any complaint by a lawyer against law enforcement agents, that the lawyer was harassed in the course of performing his duties, not only would I give that matter accelerated hearing, but I would make sure that I award punitive damages, because we need to have something that acts as a deterrent. And the judges must realize that, like, it's one profession. We must unite. It's profession. The bar and the bench are one. If lawyers cannot perform their duty, then what is the use of having judges there who themselves were lawyers at some point? And then thirdly, lawyers must be prepared to persevere and see these things through. Many times when you hear about these instances, you find out that the lawyers who are the victims of this bad behavior, they don't have the patience, the resolve, or the will to follow these things through. I've just given an example. I said that we should use the courts. To use the courts, there must be a claimant who's prepared to turn up in court, who's prepared to argue the case, or who's prepared to give evidence. But if the lawyer himself feels that, you know what, I've got better things to do, and he moves on, then it's not really possible for us to establish that deterrent factor. So for me, it's a combination of three things: direct engagement with the law enforcement agencies, engagement with the judiciary to ensure that these matters are given special treatment, and third, ensuring that lawyers themselves who are the receiving end of these things are prepared to pursue their right to a logical conclusion.
Thank you very much. That's amazing. Thank you very much. Very quickly, I'm sorry, please, we can't take a lot of more questions, so I'll just be asking at least one more question before we finally round up. So sorry about that. Do you have the plan to employ young lawyers who are skillful in some areas as staff in the NBA National Secretariat in order to reduce the unemployment of young lawyers? And that question is from Emmanuel Ibironke.
That's a very good question by Emmanuel Ibironke. So, for me to answer that presupposes that I know what the current staff strength and the current staffing requirements of the NBA Secretariat are. And the truth is, I don't. This is a good point. I should start making those inquiries so that I know. It is not going to be, it will be unwise to say, oh yes, I'm going to employ lawyers and by so doing reduce unemployment, if I don't know what the staffing requirements of the NBA Secretariat is at present. But clearly, if there is if there are staff gaps, the NBA Secretariat, definitely young lawyers would be a very veritable resource that the NBA would employ to assist to fill those gaps. And I can tell you one thing for nothing. Already, I have in mind that one of the departments of the NBA that has to be staffed a lot more adequately is the research department. Because in order for us to have the MBA of our dreams, I think it is important that we can get information at the shortest possible time on such a wide variety of issues as to how law practice obtains in different parts of the world. And to do that, you need to have a very, very strong research department. So, like I said, I don't know what the staff strength of that department is at present, but it's very likely that it would need to be strengthened.
To be enlarged, of course. Yeah. Thank you. Our final question. I'm so sorry, everyone. We can't take more questions. We are pressed for time. So the last question to you, Doctor, is what is your perspectives to young lawyers setting up their own practice and provision of capital like venture capital? So people who actually want to receive or maybe look for capital in order to establish their own practice. What are your perspectives about that for young lawyers?
I spoke about that earlier, and it's one of the things that I said I believe that the NBA must do, that the NBA should provide guidance for young lawyers as to the variety of options that are open to them when they come into the profession. And of course, one of those options is setting up practice on their own. Now, when you talk about venture capital, I don't know that we are at that stage yet. I know that in the UK and in Australia, they have what they call alternative business structures, where people actually now are investing in law firms. So people who are non-lawyers can actually invest. So a law office is seen as just any other business. So you can, set it up and drop a prospectus. This is your projections in terms of profits. And then you have people who will buy into it, who would not actually be lawyers. We are not at that stage yet. So, and whilst I don't rule it out for the future, I don't think that it is imminent. I think we still have a way to go. But what I think that we must consider, which is not venture capital, but is finance. We must be able to arrange finance at reasonable rates for lawyers who want to set up practice. And it's something that I would want to tackle. Get involved, get a development finance institution, because there's no way a law firm can borrow money at 22, 23, 24, 25%, like what our banks charge. But then, there's sectoral programs that the Nigerian economy has. So you have sectoral programs for agriculture, where they have single-digit interest rates. You have sectoral programs for various aspects of the economy that, the government wants to encourage. I think the role that the NBA play is to make sure that the legal practice is seen as an area that is deserving of support, such that we can also get special funding that will be made available for those who want to set up law firms. Because it is in our interest that law firms should be set up to a particular standard. And we don't have you don't have people operating law firms out of just a briefcase. There's a certain minimum that should be in place in terms of all the mod cons, technology, etc. that make for a good law firm. So definitely, I think the NBA should get heavily involved in it.
Get involved. Yes, of course. Thank you for that insightful contribution and answer to that question. So I think with this, we've come to the end of this interactive session. I'm so grateful to everyone who joined. Thank you so much, Doctor. I'm so grateful. I don't take your time for granted at all. Thank you for all the answers. And these are thoughts that we will go back and think about. I particularly understood and got the part where you talked about the fact that it's not always easy. No matter the path you choose, there are always going to be obstacles. But first of all, you must make the conscious effort and decision to say, you know what, this is my path. I own it. I choose it, and I'll be the better for it. So thank you very much, sir. And at this point, we'll have to come to the end. But before we go, finally, Doctor, do you have any last words for us? We are here. We have listened to what you said. What are your parting words for us before we call this interactive session to a close?
My parting words for you, Rosemond, is that first to thank you. I think you guys have done very well to put this together. I really appreciate the opportunity to engage you guys, and you particularly, Rosemond, because your questions, your appreciation of the issues. And I'm not just flattering you. I think that your appreciation of the issues is very, very good. Is quite encouraging. And lastly, the young lawyer is the future of the profession. People like me, people like I guess maybe I'm still relatively young actually, but I'm closer to the exit than I am the entry point. That's for sure.
Yes.
So young lawyers who are just getting into the profession or who have just recently come into the profession are the future of the profession. And you guys have to take responsibility. You have to take responsibility for shaping the profession into what you would like it to be. Like I said, I just ran a competition for the Obafemi Awolowo University law student. And I was quite impressed with some of what some of these students were saying about what they see for the future. I'm quite encouraged, and I think you must take that responsibility and run with it, because at the end of the day, no matter what an old lawyer, he's not the one that's going to be there in 10, 15 years time. He won't be there. You guys will be the ones there. So you need to start shaping that now, and you need to make sure that your voices are heard. So when you elect your leadership, make sure that you also stay on their case and make sure that they perform. Don't just elect them and then wait.
Of course. Make them accountable. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry. Yeah, exactly. I see some questions and comments coming. I'm so sorry, I can't take any more questions. We have to let our Leonard Silk go, but it's not going forever, and it's still with us. And we hope to see you in greater heights and greater measures. We are with you, we support you, and we hope that all your ambitions, dreams, and desires come true. Thank you so much for taking our time to be with us, and it's going to be a goodbye.
Amen.
It's going to be a goodbye from us on our end. So thank you very much, sir. We're so grateful. Thank you,
guys. Thanks a lot for everybody.
Have
Thanks a lot
a
to
good
everybody.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
sir.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.